Hey, Chad here with LearnMixedReality.com, and here we are, session number 6 of our game development journey here, creating a full game on the mixed reality devices, the immersive headsets, the occluded headsets from Microsoft partners. Most of the things we've been covering will work also with the HoloLens, so that's the benefit of using the mixed reality toolkit, is you can write your code in Unity and the vast majority of it will just simply work across all the devices, even though they're very different devices, of course. But this session, we're actually going to hook up our different components here, the items and the P's that's in the items, these shells, and we're going to show and hide and make sure the P is visible when it should be as the user selects each item. So we're finally going to see stuff on the screen instead of just the console window. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So let's jump over to Visual Studio, into our actual game controller class, and let's just think about the things we're going to hook up. So we want to be able to, when the user taps on one of the items here, for now, just for the item to disappear and to see if the P is under it or not. Okay, so that's the main thing that we're after in this session. So let's go down to our start turn. And our start turn, we already put some comments in here on things that we want to do. And so let's go and build out the code for this first comment. So we're going to loop through our items. And so we have an item container. So I'm going to loop through all those. And we want to make sure that the container is visible now, because as we tap on each one, we're going to remove the container. We're going to remove the item, just the mesh renderer of that, right? Because remember, when we first set this up in the very first session, what we would do, just to make sure our P was set up correctly, is have this item selected, and we have our P underneath the item. And all three items have their own P that's there, and you kind of see the sphere. So I'm going to take the item, and we're just going to disable the mesh renderer. And when we disable the mesh renderer, all you're left with is the P, right? And so that's what we're going to do, is when the user taps or presses the trigger with the motion controller on the shell, on the item, it's going to hide. And then if the P is visible, then we'll see it. If it's not, then they missed and they can try again. Okay. So what we're going to be working with is this mesh renderer. We're going to be enabling that and disabling that based off the state it's in. So we'll say item containers sub I, so the first one that we're in. We're going to get the component of the mesh renderer. Okay. And then we're simply going to look at the enabled flag, and to begin with, we're going to make sure in our start turn that all three of our items has the mesh enabled. Likewise, we want to do the opposite with the P. We want to make sure all the P's are hidden. So we're going to set the enabled flag of the mesh renderer to false. In fact, I'm just going to refactor this code out. I'm going to select everything, hit Control Dot, and say extract method. And I'm just going to call it prepare items for turn. And we'll delete these comments, because that's what we're doing. We're preparing the items for the turn. And we're doing that by making the mesh renderer visible in each one and the P invisible. Okay. Now let's look at our events here, where we're hooking them up. And let's actually put them kind of in a more logical order here. So we know the game over is going to be one of the last events that gets hit. as will item reset and reset complete. And put start turn up here at the top, because that's basically the order that will flow in. And the rest of these will stay the same. And since we moved them here, just to be consistent, a little OCD, we'll do the same thing down here when we unregister them. It doesn't matter, but I'm going to do it anyway. Put start at the top. There we go. So that's our events and relatively the order that they'll be called in. Well, let's take a look at our checking item, because when we're checking the item is when we want to know what's under the box, what's in the item, right? So I'm just going to actually go to item containers, passing in the item ID from the event. Again, we'll get the component of mesh renderer, and we're going to disable that. Now, chances are we're going to need to worry about our input manager, make sure we can't select one item before the other item is done. So we'll hook that up as well. So when the selected item event is being called, that's where we actually want to disable our input. And if the selected item is called, we actually want to show the item, right? We want to actually show the P. So we actually want to like insert the item there. So for that, of course, we just do item containers for the item that we're working with, right? We got the item ID from our event args. And we need to actually get the child of this. So remember, we're working with the item, but we want to go to the child of the item and make the P visible. So we'll just get child. And then we're going to get the component of that with the mesh renderer. And we're going to actually enable the P's mesh renderer. We put a comment here, disable the input. We actually want to restore the input when it's correct so the user could then interact with the other items. Because the idea is we selected the right item, or at least we selected the item and the turn's going to be over here. And while we are showing that P, we don't want them to be able to select any of the other items. But once we're resetting the item, or at least getting called into that on our item reset, that's where we want to re-enable or restore our input. Okay, so we'll hook that up here in just a second. For now, let's jump back to Unity, and we'll save our scene here. We'll hit play, and we see we have an issue because all of our items are hidden and all of our P's are visible. So let's stop that, jump back over here to our code, and scroll up here to prepare items for turn. And we'll see I made a mistake here of enabling the item and then turn around and disabling the exact same item. I was trying to disable the P here, so we will need to do the same thing that we were doing before, and that is saying transform.getChild 0, right? So we're actually trying to get the P. So when I explained that down here, we're actually making it show up when we actually select the item, make the P show up. That should include me in that I really didn't do that logic up here when we're trying to make them all hidden. So let's save that, and we'll hit play. Okay, so we see the items. That's good. When I select the one, it goes away, which is nice. We select the next one, and there's the P. So the P showed up, and then all items got reset again. Just to show again, we're going to select it, goes away. We're going to select it, it goes away, and now it's going to be on the last item, and that would signify a strike. So I'm going to see if I can actually quickly tap. When we hit a P, we don't want to be able to quickly check another item. So we're going to need to disable our input. So I'm going to try to show what I mean here. Yeah, so I'm not quick enough, obviously. Yeah, see, so I was able to remove that last item, and I shouldn't be able to do that. So let's go ahead and add in the logic that we put the comments for, of disabling input, and then restoring the input when we're ready to go again. So down here, we want to disable the input when we actually select the right item. We need the Input Manager from the Mixed Reality Toolkit. So I'm going to hit Control Dot to bring in the Holo Toolkit Unity Input Module. And again, the namespaces and stuff will change. This will be the Mixed Reality. So depending on when you're watching that, it may well be the Mixed Reality namespace. But for now, it's Input Manager, and we're going to grab the instance of that Input Manager. So we're just working with the singleton object here. And then we're going to push onto the stack saying, hey, I need to disable all input. And that's really what it boils down to. When we select the item and it is the P, whether it's the right selection or the wrong selection, the point is that now we have the P and we want to, maybe react in a particular way. We definitely don't want the user to be able to select a different item. So we disabled it. But if that's all we did, then when the new turn starts and the items are reset, they wouldn't be able to select their next item. So we need to make sure we go and restore the input when the items are being reset. And so we'll just do a check here to make sure that we didn't get off track somehow. I'm going to say Input Manager instance is input enabled. Right, so that's just a boolean. We'll see if we're actually enabled or not. And if we're not enabled, then we're going to go ahead and pop. We're actually going to pop the input disable that we set. So the way the Input Manager works is we can disable, we can push it onto the stack and hey, we want to disable all the input. And then when we're ready to restore the input, we can just pop it off the stack. So we'll save that and see if we can quickly demonstrate it working. All right, so I'm going to select the first item, second, and third, and that's all fine. So nothing to check there. First one, okay. Now I'm clicking on that next one, and I clicked on it like 3 times, and it didn't remove it until the return was reset. Okay, so our input is working. We're disabling it correctly, and then of course the next turn it's being enabled so we can actually try it again. So everything there is working nicely. Now what would be nice is to actually show our score, show when we actually get a strike, because right now we're getting all the information. It's all down here in the console log, but it'd be nice to actually let the user see this, the player see it when they're playing the game. And that's what we're going to do next time, is we're going to add in some text objects, and we'll add in our striking text. So if we get a strike, and our scoring text, and we'll be able to display whether we effectively lost, because the strikes will be 3 strikes and the score will get reset. So that'll be next session. Appreciate you sticking with me so far while we create a game from start to finish on these mixed reality devices. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button. If you didn't like it, you can hit that dislike button. That way I'll know if I should continue doing things like this or not in the future. And if you're new to the channel, by all means hit that subscribe if you want to be notified or have the possibility of being notified when new videos come out. And I think you can jump through some hoops to make sure you're notified, but I'll leave that up to you, hitting the bell and everything else. But thanks so much for sticking with me and watching this session where we actually linked up the game components to our logic and kind of cleaned up our input controls to disable them and restore them at the appropriate points. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in the next video.